So when you do a pressing exercise, you can start to like kind of turn in the humeral head. This is something that we want to avoid. Also, when we're pressing overhead, because we haven't got that overhead range, what we're likely to do is start flaring our rib cage, using our lower back, and start trying to challenge ourselves with too heavier weights. We're leaning back into the movement. This is more in standing exercises and the seated shoulder press as well. So what we need to do, we need to find ways that we can engage the shoulders, the posterior shoulders, and engage the core at the same time, and limit ourselves from that hyperextension of the spine. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go through 3 exercises that can be done in most boxing gyms if you have the equipment. We're going to go through kneeling variations. We're going to go in a split stance. Now in this split stance, half kneeling position, we're getting strong enough, we're getting a lot of stability from being in this kneeling position without including the involvement of our legs. So it's not putting any loading through our legs. Also, it helps us keep our core nice and stable whilst doing a pressing exercise. So we're going to go into a dumbbell, half kneeling shoulder press. So it's going to be opposite arm, opposite leg. Getting in that kneeling position, and we're going to have that dumbbell just sitting just in front of the shoulder. Now elbow needs to be underneath the dumbbell, but just slightly externally rotated, but not too much. If it's too much, it ends up being too shoulder dominant and using too much, underactivating the triceps. If too narrow, then the triceps are being used a little bit too much. So we want it just slightly externally rotated. Good. Shoulder blades back, hand on the stomach to make sure that you're using that core to stabilize your spine. And then we're going to press up overhead, then back down. And when as you press, Carl, I just want you to turn that dumbbell as well. Good. Brilliant. And what you want to avoid is shrugging up that shoulder there. So what people are likely to do is to press and their shoulder to almost like kind of brush their earlobe. What we try and tell them to do is to keep that shoulder sat back and down whilst in that overhead position.
As we've spoken about in a previous video, some of our fighters struggle to get into that free overhead position. This is where a landmine can come into play. We like the landmine because it allows the scapula to move freely into upward rotation, and we're also getting some nice recruitment through the trunk as well, because we're resisting against rotational and lateral flexion forces. So Tommy, if we pick the landmine up, we're going to start with a standard bilateral stance, so he's nice and stable through there. And as we spoke about, the trunk's having to really switch on to deal with that load. So we're getting some additional benefits through the core as well. So Tommy, if we press up overhead in a straight line, and then come back down, lovely. So you can see he's really bracing through the trunk, nice and stable through the feet, and pressing up nicely there. And because of the setup with the landmine, it's going to mean he's not going to have to go into that flared positioning. So you can see rib cage down, core nice and tight, scapula's moving nicely through upward rotation, so it's a lot more shoulder friendly.
All right, so moving on to a fantastic exercise that many of you will know, the bottoms up kettlebell press. And we're going to do this in split kneeling to really bias the shoulder. So if we set up with your left leg leading, we want a nice tall trunk position here, and it's really important to coach this well if it's the first time someone's done this exercise. Neutral head alignment, and we're going to ask the individual to pick up the kettlebell, and with the other hand turn the weight upside down and stabilize the weight with the other hand. So if you hold it with, that's it. So now when we're happy they're in a good position, we're going to encourage them to grip maximally and drive the weight up. Good work, excellent. We're going to keep that low rib position, straight spinal position, and aim towards the ceiling. I use the analogy of trying to balance a champagne glass on top of the weight, try not to spill it. And as you can see here with Tommy, he's got excellent control. And that tempo is great. We're looking at 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, Fantastic exercise for all of those scapulothoracic muscles there, and working on that eccentric control as well to get maximal benefit.